Welcome back, everybody. As you probably guessed from the title of the video, the ATF is up to some nonsense again, trying to strip rights from American citizens. So it's kind of a lot to digest, and my guess is they did that on purpose. They probably also dropped it on a Friday on purpose so people would miss it and not hear about it. Well, I'm here, so you guys will hear about it. I ask that you guys share this everywhere you can, so that way your friends are made aware of the infringements that are trying to be put in place by the ATF. Sorry about the wind if it's getting in my mic, but doing the best I can to process it out. So there is a lot in here, guys, and basically what they're trying to do is change what is a frame, what is a firearm receiver, how they have to be identified, how they have to be handled, as well as some changes to what a silencer or suppressor is. The ATF calls it a silencer. You guys can debate the nomenclature down below. So here's the summary. I'll read it verbatim to you guys. Some of this I will have to read verbatim because it matters, right? So here we go. They are attempting to provide new definitions of firearm, frame or receiver, and frame or receiver. Amend the definition of firearm to clarify when a firearm parts kit is considered a firearm. We're going to get into that in a good bit of detail here in a second. And gunsmith to clarify the meaning of that term and to explain that gunsmiths may be licensed solely to mark firearms for unlicensed persons. That's never been the case before. They're trying to change it to that. Provide definitions for complete weapon, complete muffler or silencer device, privately made firearm known as PMF going forward, and readily for purposes of clarity given advancements in firearms technology. That readily is going to be a big one here in just a second. So kind of walk down into the frame or receiver component of this. So here it says under the new rule, a frame or receiver is any externally viable housing or holding structure for one or more fire control components. A fire control component is one necessary for the firearm to initiate, complete, continue firing sequence, including but not limited to, of course not, any of the following: hammer, bolt carrier, breech block, cylinder, trigger mechanism, firing pin, striker, or slide rails. So I just want to kind of take a step back here and let you guys know what they currently consider to be a frame or receiver. The part of a firearm which provides the housing for the hammer, bolt, or breech lock and firing mechanism, and which is usually threaded at its forward position to receive the barrel. So the reason that's important is recently the ATF has had to basically drop the charges on a lot of people for illegally making firearms because the most popular rifle in America, for example, the AR-15, does not meet that definition. The ATF has arrested people for illegally making AR-15s, manufacturers rather, not just regular folks out there. And then when they go to court, the ATF drops the charges because their own definition of what that is doesn't meet it. So I think one of the reasons they're trying to do this is to not have that situation come up again in court. And additionally, of course, they're trying to go after 80% receivers without question. So we're going to go back to the parts kit, or rather, before we get into that, they do say that any firearm part within the new definition that is identified with a serial number must be presumed absent an official determination by the ATF or any reliable evidence to the contrary to be a frame or receiver. So under their new proposed definition, an AR-15 upper receiver would be a firearm or frame or receiver to them and would have to be serialized and be treated as a firearm itself. They go through some more there, as you guys can see. I don't want to read everything for you guys, but just realize there's more than what I'm saying here for you. I'm just trying to hit the big points to make the video not an hour long. Additionally, they go into firearm parts and kits. The proposed rule explains that when a partially complete frame or receiver parts kit has reached a stage in manufacture where it may be readily completed, assembly, converted, or restored to a functional state, then it is a frame or receiver. That must be marked with a serial number and the standard markings that they go into. Standard markings, for folks that don't know, is like the manufacturer's name, the city and the state where it was manufactured, and then the serial number. There's also a certain depth they have to be engraved into, as well as a certain size of font. It's all specified by the ATF. Weapon parts kits with partially complete frames or receivers and containing the necessary parts such that they may be readily completed, assembled, converted, restored to expel a projectile by the action of an explosive are firearms for which each frame or receiver of the weapon would need to be marked. So with that, I mean, that goes into a lot of different things. So in theory, I mean, you could fire, like if you removed a Glock slide, for example, and just pulled back the striker assembly on the rear and then pushed in on the release, the striker safety, it would fire. So under this definition, then would a Glock slide also be a firearm? Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, they say any weapon, including a weapon's parts kit in which the frame or receiver of the weapon or within such kit is destroyed, is not considered a firearm. So what they're trying to say there is if you have a bunch of 80% kits that you bought from like 80% Arms or something like that, or Polymer 80 sitting around in your garage, if you destroy them, then you don't have to worry about it. Okay, ATF. Then they go into the marking requirements, which I already kind of hit on a couple minutes ago. Making and record-keeping requirements for PMFs. So under the proposed rule, a privately made firearm is a firearm, including a frame or receiver assembled or otherwise produced by a person other than a licensed manufacturer, and without a serial number or identifying markings placed by a licensed manufacturer at the time the firearm was produced. The term does not include NFA registered firearms or one made before October 22nd, 1968. Of course, that's the Gun Control Act. That's what that is, if you guys don't know. And then they go into what licensees must do, properly mark them, properly mark acquired firearms as well. Once the rule becomes final, they're presuming it's going to become final, and unless already marked by another licensee, properly mark each PMF within 7 days following the date of receipt or acquisition, including a personal collection, or before the date of disposition, whichever is sooner. So they're putting a timeline now on when you have to do it. For example, if you were to, like a manufacturer like myself, I am a firearms manufacturer, 0207. So if I make a machine gun, I have 24 hours to mark it. So for these items, they're trying to say that you have 7. But of course, that could change at any time here, as we will get to in just a second. Marking, registration, and transfer requirements for silencers. Under the proposed rule, any frame or receiver of a firearm, muffler, or silencer device is defined as a housing or holding structure for one or more internal components of the device, including but not limited to baffles, building material, or expansion chamber. Manufacturers and makers of complete muffler or silencers need only mark each part or specific parts as determined by the ATF. Again, determined by the ATF. Very, very gray in that run, of the device defined as a firearm, or rather a frame or receiver under this rule. However, individual muffler or silencer parts must be marked if they are disposed of separately from a complete device unless transferred by a qualified manufacturer to other qualified licensees for the manufacture of repair or complete devices. Excuse me. And then they go into what a manufacturer may do, as you guys can see here on your screen. And then the records of acquisition and disposition. Under this proposed rule, records of manufacture, importation, acquisition, and disposition by the manufacturers and importers must be consolidated to one book similar to dealers, and the format containing applicable columns is specified as part of the regulation. So those of you who aren't FFLs, you've probably never seen this, but there is a pretty standardized FFL book, and it says you have to number the item basically in order that it came in, say who the manufacturer is, what their FFL number was, the date it was received, the type of firearm it is, the caliber of the firearm, and I believe the FFL of who sent it to you is what they require. And they're also requiring anybody who has any of these items that we talked about to store those records for at least 20 years, which is, of course, crazy because basically they're applying the FFL rules to individuals under this proposed change. So what can we do? Well, so this rule, as of right now, isn't stated to go into effect until 90 days from now. Now, the ATF in the past, for those of you guys who are new, the ATF in the past has said similar things like, oh, it'll be, you know, the comments section or the comments period, which is what they're announcing here, is over in 60 days. And they've actually closed them in like 15 days before in the past because the ATF is a rogue agency that doesn't follow the law, let alone their own rules. So while they're saying it's 90 days right now, it may not turn out to be 90 days. So I just want to put that out there because history repeats itself. So what can you do? Submit a comment. It absolutely matters. There's a whole lot of people out there who are saying that there's nothing we can do. They're going to do what they want. It's not true. Again, a couple examples I will give here real quick is the braces, which of course they're probably going to come after again, but they've gone after braces before, and because there's been such an overwhelming pushback against it through these comments that they allow you to submit, they did not ban braces. The same is true with M855. During the Obama administration, they tried to ban M855, and because everybody had 855, everybody had an AR-15, the public erupted. Comments were dropped by the hundreds of thousands, and the ATF did not ban it. They did the same thing with 7.6, which is fired through an AK-74, for those that don't know. And because AK-74s are relatively, scarce compared to an AR-15 in America, very few comments went through, and they banned it. So the comments absolutely do matter. There's 3 different ways that you can submit them. You can do it online, mail, and fax. All that information will be here down below in the video description. I urge you, if you're going to submit a comment, bugs out here a little crazy. If you're going to submit a comment, do so in a professional way. They have some rules here as to what you have to have, including your first and last name, mailing address, be signed, those sorts of things. You don't have to sign it digitally, of course. Only that's if you do it by mail. Again, all the info to do that will be down below in the video description. I urge you to do so, and I urge you to urge your friends to do so as well to stop this nonsense, because right now there are millions of 80% kits builds out there, as well as 80% just receivers sitting around waiting to be built, right? I know lots of people that have stocked up on 10 to 20 of them because they foresaw this day coming. Unfortunately, there's no grandfather period here. So for folks who did that, if you built it, you're going to have to serialize it and be treated like a firearm for every other, type of legal consideration. So there is no grandfather clause here if this rule goes into effect. So again, urge you to comment, let them know that this is unacceptable. Additionally, guys, whatever you write to the ATF, I would also write something very similar to your congressman. Again, with the SB Tactical, or excuse me, the braces, not just SB Tactical, but with the brace thing, a lot of prominent congressional members, both Senate and House, came out and gave very public statements on it. Some of them went on media, social media, etc., to express their concerns over a rogue agency like the ATF doing what they're trying to do here. So definitely hit them up as well and let them know that this is unacceptable. If you guys have any questions, anything like that, you can let me know down below in the comments section. Again, I didn't hit every detail on there, but I hit the big ones, and basically, they're trying to infringe on your rights to make a firearm, because people in America have been able to make their own firearms since the history of the country. It's always been the case. It's never been illegal, and they're trying to stop that now through a regulation, not a law. And additionally, one thing I didn't really even get into is 3D printing, right? Obviously, I have a 3D printer. Most people out there have the ability to get one. They're about 150 bucks right now. You can 3D print frames, all of those sorts of things at will, very easily. And at what point does it readily become convertible? The ATF isn't telling you. They're just going to say it's readily convertible when we say it is. Think about that. They're just making people criminals who don't even know they're doing something illegal, because it shouldn't be illegal. It's always been legal. Anyway, I could beat that dead horse to death, guys, but I think we beat it enough, rather. That's all I got for you. Unfortunately, having to do another one of these videos that I don't want to do, but I have to get the word out to you guys, so that way you guys can get it out to your friends and stop this nonsense before it goes into effect. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.